We are following more breaking news now. Condolences continuing to pour in after the sudden death of Senator Lindsey Graham. The lifelong South Carolinian died last night.
Graham represented his home state for decades. He blazed a path for America's foreign policy and had just returned from a visit to Ukraine when he died. Tonight, we're learning new details about the cause of his death. We have team coverage. NBC4's Keenan Willard joins us here in studio with more on Lindsey Graham's life and legacy. Keenan.
Yeah, that's right, Kathy. His sudden death coming as a shock to many, including to voters here in Southern California. People we spoke with today telling us Graham leaves behind a national legacy in U.S. politics. Tonight, we're also learning more about the senator's cause of death.
Thank you all very much.
Reactions pouring in nationwide to the loss of U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham. The South Carolina senator's office saying in a statement that last night, Graham passed away from a brief and sudden illness. Senator Graham's family appreciates prayers at this time and asks for privacy during this incredibly difficult period.
He was somebody that loved our country, and he fought very hard for the country.
A former active duty Air Force serviceman who retired with the rank of colonel, Graham spent 8 years in the U.S. House of Representatives before being elected to the Senate in 2002. The chairman of the Senate Budget Committee, Graham was one of the most well-known members of the chamber and a key voice in the Republican Party on defense and foreign policy. He became a close political ally of President Trump. The president telling Meet the Press he spoke to Graham on the phone last night.
He sounded a little tired, but perfect, but a little bit tired. I got a message about 1 o'clock in the morning from one of the people at his office that he had passed away. I said, I just can't believe it. He was like a member of the family to me. It's very tough, actually.
Graham's office saying the D.C. medical examiner's office found his preliminary cause of death was aortic dissection due to arteriosclerotic cardiovascular disease. The death certificate will be pending until all testing is finalized. Tonight, current and former elected officials reacting to this loss. Former President George W. Bush saying Graham understood how the world works and how important America's international engagement is to resist tyranny. Senate Majority Leader John Thune calling Graham a strong advocate for the United States and a strong ally to freedom-loving countries across the globe. And former President Joe Biden saying of Graham, we disagreed often and sometimes loudly. Lindsey and I did agree on the profound importance of public service. To his family, his staff, his constituents in South Carolina, and everyone who loved him, Jill and I are keeping you in our prayers.
He was a, iconic individual in politics in this country, and it's sorry to see him pass on.
Today, voters in Southern California sharing shock and sadness as they learned of the senator's death.
I thought he was a champion of the Senate. I really did, and to see him go, that's a big hole now to fill, and yeah, it's just tragic.
Even living across the country from Graham's jurisdiction, some saying they still felt his impact on politics.
Well, he was a great senator. It's just really a wonderful person.
We're going to miss him, I think.
Yeah.
Now, the president has ordered flags across the country to be flown at half staff until Saturday in Graham's honor. No funeral arrangements have been announced just yet. Kathy, Jonathan.
Yeah, it's interesting because, people really talked about how well-liked he was. He got along with people from both sides of the aisle. Even President Trump, he was, a staunch opponent of. He ran against him for president in 2016, ends up becoming perhaps his closest ally in Congress.
It was really interesting. You heard it in the story there. One of those staunch allies President Trump has had, but it did not start that way, especially going back to 2016 when we're looking at this is a guy who wanted the Republican nomination. He ran for president in 2016. In May of 2016, he very famously said, if we nominate Trump, we will get destroyed and we will deserve it. Fast forward a few months, he drops out before the primaries, and he is now one of the president's staunchest allies. He's a voice on foreign policy and defense. So that political relationship, when they were so far apart, Graham really represented one of those traditional Republicans when the president was considered a political outsider. And then look at where they came to just over a decade later in their relationship. Interesting to watch there.
And I think what was so shocking last night is that even if you didn't follow his politics, he was always out front talking. People recognized his face. They knew his name. He had just traveled to Ukraine and come back and talked to the president, and then to get the announcement in the middle of the night that this had happened. beautiful tribute, and it was good that you talked to people today. You know, they want to weigh in because he meant something to them, no matter what.
Kathy, it was interesting. We were at the Reagan Library and we're talking to people from, you know, Southern California, and they're talking about the senator from South Carolina saying this was a recognizable champion of the U.S. Senate. We felt a connection to him, even though he represents an area on the other side of the country.
He was very
You definitely
visible.
felt that today.
Yeah. All right, Keenan, thank you.